welcome back to the 7th video. So in the previous video we learned how to save a report and then export it in different formats such as PDF and Excel. And in this video we're going to modify a report's query to increase the amount of available objects that we can actually report on. So we're going to use a report that we created in QTV5 and saved in QTV6. And step 1 we've done a few times now, so you're probably used to it. Once we're inside the report, go into the top right hand corner and click on the Design view. And then on the left side, before we go into the query, let's look at our current available objects. If we select the icon on the left side that has a page and some geometric shapes on it, this is the Available Objects tab. And this is going to show us the objects that are available for us to report on currently. Now the source of those objects is actually the topic of discussion in this video, which is the query. So how do we get to the query? Well, there's two ways we can do this. The first of those in the top ribbon here, if you select the Data Access tab, you'll see an additional submenu pop up. And then under the Data Provider section, go ahead and select Edit. Now the second path that I can take to access the query panel, if I go ahead and close out of this really quickly, in the top left-hand corner here is a small icon, and if you click that, it's also going to take you to the query panel. Alright, so once the query panel is opened up, we can see the different sections contained within it, and the query panel is broken up into 4 main sections. On the left side, we have the universe outline, and this is the master perspective of all the data elements contained within a universe. And those data elements feed into the results objects and the query filters, which allow you to report on and constrain the data respectively. Now the data preview we'll cover in a later video. So starting with the universe outline, you'll see that I have 3 folders within it. These folders are called classes, and all a class is essentially a collection of data elements. Now if I click the plus symbol next to a class, it's going to expand the list and show me the available objects contained within that class. And there's going to be 2 different types of data elements in the classes. Ones that have the diamond symbol next to them, and ones that have the ruler symbol next to them. Now the objects that have the blue diamond symbol on the left side next to them are called dimensions. And at a high level, dimensions are what we report on. And typically dimension objects provide the basis for analysis in a report. Dimension objects are not necessarily calculations or numerical values. So even objects like port of entry code that contains 4 numbers, it still wouldn't make sense to do a sum of port codes. Now looking at the other data element type, measure objects on the other hand, those are the ones that have the ruler symbol next to them. Measures are the results of calculations on the data in a database. And so measure objects actually work dynamically with the dimension objects that they're associated with. So let's use the example of the measure that's in the report currently, number of entries. If I associate number of entries with the port of entry code, I'm going to get the total number of entries for each particular port. Now at the same time, if I were to bring in number of entries, port of entry code, as well as the entry date object, well then I'm going to get the number of entries for every port code for every calendar date that exists. So it's probably tough to conceptualize at this point, but when you see it, it'll make more sense. So for now we're going to cover how to include one of those data elements as a result object. You'll see here in the top right hand corner I have a number of result objects. And the result objects are what ended up populating that Available Objects tab that we saw on the previous screen. So from the universe outline on the left side, I'm going to drag in 3 objects: entry type code, mode of transportation code, and then mode of transportation. Just a quick note, if you hover over any of the objects, there should be a tooltip that gives you a complete description of what the object is, what it does, and what are some possible values if you were to bring it into a report. Now there's a couple of ways we can drag objects into the result objects panel. Either A, I can click the object and then drag it into the result objects panel, or B, I can double click the object and it'll automatically go into the result objects panel for me. And just a quick note, the order of the objects as they appear in the Result Objects panel has no bearing on the actual report itself. Right now we're just adding objects to our pool of available objects to choose from. How they end up being displayed is going to depend on how we define that in our report. Alright, so once we've added all of our objects, we can go ahead and go into the top right hand corner here and select Run Query. And when you do that, you're going to see that you're again briefed with the prompts. Every time that you manipulate the query in any way, whether it's adding or removing objects, you're going to need to rerun the report. Alright, and once my query is finished loading, you'll see here in the Available Objects section, I now have those 3 additional elements that I added to my query. You're also wise to notice that the objects did not make it into the actual rows and columns in the table of the report itself. And why is that? Well, you're just going to have to watch the next video, QTV number 8, which is how to manipulate the display of a report. Please try and contain your suspense.